Good evening and welcome to our Wednesday Map Talk. So if you want to be inspired, if you want to just think, if you want to be challenged, or if you want to ask questions of yourself, or if you just want to learn, you are in the right place. Because I tell you what, tonight you will be inspired, challenged, and you will ask questions of yourself and you will learn. Because tonight we have a great speaker, somebody who started working with this concept way back in 1999, and he's still here, which is just a sign that this is a fantastic way to learn. He has vast experience, great knowledge, and I'm so looking forward to introduce to you our speaker tonight, Peter Darroll.
Heather, thank you for that introduction. Folks, it's wonderful to be with you. Map for Life changed my life when I was introduced to it. I got the first book before it was even called Map for Life. It was my history in the making, and it changed my life, and I'm passionate about it. And there are many things that it does for us. But really, it was last week when Glenn was talking about how to find your why. And he spoke about it's not about the money. It's about meaning. And then we had a panel discussion and we spoke about money, and both on air and off air. And I just felt that I needed to come back and say a little bit more about it, because to me there is no doubt that it is all about money. I know all about meaning, sorry, not meaning, not money. I know that money is an important subject, and particularly in this day and time where we constantly being focused on things like cost of living, and we see petrol increases and things like that. But I do believe that there's more to life than just money. You know, there are many things that money can't buy. And last week when we were talking, I had just written down in my journal a list of 17 things that money can't buy. And then I went a little further and I Googled the topic, and I came up with 50 different things. And I could spend the next while talking about these 50 different things that money can't buy. But one of the panelists, Terence, said to me, Peter, you can't be too long, because a little later this evening, Manchester City are playing and I want to watch it. And I said, but Terence, I thought you were a Liverpool supporter. He said, no, I am a Liverpool supporter, but it's a case of I want to watch Manchester City get beaten. Now, that's just something that money can't buy. But there are many things, and I just looked at the list, things like health, home, respect, friendship. What about love? What about self-satisfaction? Money doesn't buy wisdom, doesn't give us purpose. It doesn't bring us happy kids, doesn't bring loyalty, doesn't affect character. What about inner peace, gratitude? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about gratitude going further. But money doesn't bring happiness, self-esteem, or a close-knit family. It doesn't buy time. And that's one of the most important aspects in our lives. And I could carry on with a list of these things. But it is important just to bear in mind that there are a lot of things that money can't buy. As we look at the lives of the rich and famous, we see examples of what happens. I was just reading this last week about a chap called Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, who had everything, money and fame. And yet at 42, he died just because there was nothing left in life. Could you imagine what he could have done if he had a meaning somewhere built into his bit? A couple of weeks back, Terence spoke on this very show, and he spoke about the power of our thoughts. And that's the first thing I want us to focus on. And in Proverbs, it talks about, be careful how you think. Your life is shaped by your thoughts. And we were talking this morning, and we were talking about how sometimes we just find ourselves standing and staring, and we're not quite knowing what to do next. Sometimes it's a case of we feel we've got too much to do and we don't know where to start. And if that's the case, there's only one way to handle it, and that's just to start. But sometimes we're trapped by fear. And it's a case of this fear, more often than not, is related to money. And we need to change our thinking. And I think the first step is to focus on abundance and not scarcity. Think of all of the things we have as opposed to all of the things we don't have. The mere fact that you're sitting here listening to me tonight indicates that you are in the upper band in the socio-economic group, and that maybe in the top 2-3% of the world. Think of how many people out there just are not able to join in a show like that. Be grateful for that. Now, everything that I'm saying tonight is based on one fact. I know that each one of you out there was born for a purpose that the world cannot do without. You are unique. You are one of a kind. When your master action plan meets the master's master plan, the master will make abundant provision for you. And I think that's important to be aware of that fact. Now, energy, and money is just energy. Just remember that energy flows where focus goes. So where is your focus? I learned something new today, and it was quite interesting. And I discovered that prosperity is a Latin word, and it means to be in the flow. So my next question for you is, are you in the flow? Zig Ziglar spoke of us moving from survival to stability, from stability to success, from success to significance. And that's one of my favorite quotes, and particularly as I've been up and down a few times in my life, and know what it's like to be up and down. But I also want to point out that as we think about these things, creation has its own system, and we need to accept that it's a system that we can't change. We can't be rushed. An acorn doesn't become a mighty oak overnight. And I think of childbirth. There's no way we can rush childbirth. And folk have tried many ways, but it's just not possible. It takes 9 months for a baby to be conceived. And on this question of moving from survival to stability and moving forward, I know that there are many folk who have tried to rush the process and react before they've reached the right place. And they suddenly think that they've been there, and they rush out and they buy all the trappings of success. And you see the big fancy homes, you see the motor cars. I was just looking at a Facebook friend, and I looked at a photograph of her from some years ago, and there she was at this wonderful place out in suburbia, and parked outside with these 3 fancy German cars, but she hadn't got there, and she was living on credit. And the day came when she had to pay the price and go back to start all again. And the world came crashing down. So it's a question of, let's just pause and say, what is success? And I say success is the progressive realization of dreams or goals, and it's a steady, step-by-step process. And on the steady, step-by-step process, that's where our Map for Life steps in. It shows us and helps us to program the way we want to go. And I think we need to be creating this momentum. And I believe that somehow once we start the momentum, a greater force or providence steps in and often just takes over. I saw this demonstrated recently with a dear friend of mine. This friend of mine decided to take a mid-year gap year and pack up everything and go out and pursue her passion, starting off wanting to explore South Africa and then subsequently to travel overseas. But she started off with not quite sure how she was going to do it. Unbelievably, she entered a competition on LM radio, and the prize was the use of a fancy motor car, 4x4 motor car, for 3 months. And the sponsor, I think, was Isuzu. They paid for her petrol. And there was an example of once she started on her journey, Providence stepped in and provided her with the wherewithal. She finished her trip around the country and now is heading off to the UK. And again, she was concerned about the finances. But because she had taken action and created the momentum, suddenly out of the blue was a case of 43,000 Rand appeared from nowhere. And she is on her way and safe and secure on the financial side. As we think about where we're going, I just love this week's Map for Life gem, which talks about what ignites your fire and puts a smile on your face. What makes life worthwhile? I think these are the things we should be looking at, and these are the things that we should be pursuing. I just love the way that the Bible sets out where we should be going and what we should be doing. And I just love Matthew chapter 6, where it talks about worry and how worry can consume us, and the worries that we're talking about when it comes to a financial side. And I think as we look at those things, what is important? It is important that we step out with faith and not fear. It's a case of so easy to be consumed by fear, but we need that faith to take us to that next level. And I love the way that Matthew chapter 6 finishes, where it talks about seeking first God's kingdom and what God wants, then all these things will be added to you. So folks, I want you to pursue your passion on that basis. Thank you for being here.
Wow, Peter, what a way to end. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. Isn't it amazing what we are seeking? Money, money, money. Ooh, I am so looking forward to the panel joining me to have this discussion. We're going to be joined by Terence Glenn, and Norman. So looking forward to this discussion. Gentlemen, I'm sure you thoroughly enjoyed that talk. Now, the key thing is, what is the most important thing to you, parents, that money cannot buy? While Terence unmutes himself, I'm just going to shift the question to Norman.
The greatest takeaway, you said, Heather?
No, what is the most important thing to you that money cannot buy? Personally, to you personally.
Oh, yes. It's inner peace. The fountain of peace is a fountain that never runs dry if you have found true peace. So, in all this, people often say, really, the end of it all, we are asking for happiness. We're seeking happiness in all these things, but also we're really seeking inner peace. And like I say, it's a fountain that never dries, and money cannot buy that. So to me, that's the most important thing.
Do you concur, Terence, or you is something else
Yeah,
more
no,
important?
absolutely. I would agree with Norman that money cannot buy peace. But for me, the emphasis is on relationships. The relationships with my family in particular, my spouse and my kids and my grandkids. Although you can use money to try and enhance that, at the end of the day, it's really a heart thing that for me is important, and the heart components of a relationship you cannot buy with money. So for me, it's relationships, Heather.
So true. We've got inner peace, we've got relationships. Glenn, what about you?
Absolutely, Heather. Terence actually stole my thunder there. It was also relationships for me. It's probably the most important. But I think the other issue that most of us probably think of immediately is about time. And for me, about just time freedom. And yes, money can buy that to a certain extent. But the fact of the matter is we all have 24 hours in a day. And it's how we use it effectively. That's what makes the difference. You can have all the money in the world and you can still not use it effectively. So that's also quite an important factor.
Yes, definitely time. Because I was thinking, well, money cannot actually buy you time, but with time, you can create money. And if you have more time, then of course you'll have time for the inner peace and for the relationships. Because if you run out of time, then you're not here anymore. And you can't, you'll probably be peaceful. It won't be inner, but so time, yes, very, very important. Peter addressed something about our thoughts, the power of our thoughts. Um, Glenn, what occupies your mind most of the time?
Helping people to sort out the thoughts in their mind. That's really the passion for me, to actually get them to think correctly and change perceptions, change mindsets. That's really what it's about for me at the end of the day. I really thoroughly enjoy that. And to actually get them to change from a negative to a positive attitude makes a huge difference. So that's important for me.
So I'm just thinking, Norman. So you got to focus, you got to think about what you're thinking about, right? So how do you do that? How are you aware of what you are thinking about?
Well, you see, the challenge is that it's been found that what you think through your subconscious actually is a lot more than what you think consciously. So you can imagine that what goes on and what actually controls us is a bigger portion of what drives us in whichever direction we are going. So I'm answering your question to say, whilst we may be conscious of one or two positive things, like Glenn said about improving lives and changing mindsets, we must also be clearly aware that we are up against a bigger challenge. And just give me a moment to say the bigger challenge comes in, particularly when you're in relation to the subject, the fact that before us are billboards on the road when you're driving, and each one of those billboards has something that is money related, a flashy car or a flashy item, a car, a home or something. You go on TV, it's all this flashy lifestyle. And therefore, these things get, to go into our subconscious. And we are therefore up against a major battle to even change those mindsets to say, look, money cannot buy inner peace. It cannot buy, happiness and the things that Peter said. So, yeah, it's in other words, it takes a lot of effort to be conscious about the things that money cannot buy, and it is our journey through Map for Life to try and bring that awareness, as did Peter tonight.
Thank you, Norman. Now, Terence, how do you change the paradigm? Because from the age of 2, 3, money, or the scarce of it, the lack of it, or the abundance, whichever way you were brought up, is drilled into you. Do you think money grows on trees? Is something parents often say to their children.
So,
how would you deal
so
with that?
Heather, yeah, I believe we've got to start by first of all being deliberate about it. Okay, and as Glenn said earlier, we need to raise our kids in a way that they understand what role money plays in our lives. Okay, for example, many of us, and including myself, was brought up to think, money is evil. You got to be, and that's not true. Money is not evil. Money is actually amoral. Money is just a tool. It's in the hands of us as individuals where it becomes evil. All right. So how do we change the paradigm? Is to change our relationship with money. Okay, and to admit that money does get us good things, but that's not what life is all about. Money is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. So, and I would start very, very young as well, because the one thing that I was always amazed about was that in schools, for example, the correct use of money and things finance related are not normally taught. You're normally taught of these things perhaps in high school if you're fortunate to be in a private school, or at university. So from a very early stage, and build it into a value system that what is money and what is our relationship with money. That's how I believe you change the paradigm. Very difficult to change it, once you're older. So start early, be deliberate, understand the relationship, understand where money fits into life. Because unfortunately, we're not going to do away with it. Crypto's onto us. It's a reality.
So true.
Can't
Great
push it
advice.
away. Yeah.
Thanks for that. And Glenn, now I'm thinking, Peter said to us to focus on abundance and not scarcity. Now, perhaps I'm living in a place where something like petrol, for example, is scarce, and there's queues, and I've got to use my vehicle every day. It's very, very difficult not to focus on the scarcity. Now, to swing the pendulum where abundance flows to us and through us, what advice would you give somebody in that situation?
I often talk about a scarcity mentality or a poverty mentality, which I think so many of us have, and where that fear comes in that Peter was talking about. The minute we don't have the finances, we have this constant fear that things are going to go wrong. And most of the time, those things that are going to go wrong don't necessarily go wrong. But we fear it so much that we're so focused on that. And I think we need to change that around. I really believe that we need to start focusing on exactly what Map for Life does for us. We need to focus on the goal, physically put pen to paper, write down the ideas and concepts, and then step into it. And as we step into it, the provision will begin to work and function, and it'll start working. So that's what's important. I believe that it's about changing your thought pattern from I'm worrying about money. I'm worrying I can't do this. I can't get the petrol. I can't get to my work. No, get the right vision. What is the vision for the future? Focus on that. Put pen to paper. Step into it. Take one step at a time, and then move, and it'll begin to happen and work. And it's about consistency from then onwards to really keep the focus, keep the goal in sight, and just consistently work at it step by step by step, and it will change.
That's true. Peter did tell us about focus, and he gave a lovely example. But Norman, I'm thinking now, if we're going to focus on abundance, surely we should be grateful. Why is it that so many people are not grateful for the little things?
I suppose we're not grateful for the little things because the society we live in espouses the bigger things. So if I live in a 2-bedroom house and it suffices, suddenly I want to keep up with the Joneses because they have bought a new car, and therefore I'm also under pressure to buy a new car. And what actually breeds that type of mindset of comparison is the lack of understanding of self. It's the lack of finding your own voice and your own purpose. Therefore, what motivates and drives you is external to you, and it's not internal to you. So if you have not found, like Glenn said, if you have not taken time to kind of write on paper, write on the Map for Life journal as an example, as to these are the things that I want to do, you're going to keep feeling this vacuum. And if this vacuum exists within you, it's going to be filled by what the Joneses are doing. And therefore, you're not going to be grateful for the little that you have, and you're going to want. But if you have clarity of your own direction, and you will have a sense of control and a sense of level of satisfaction. So yeah, the mindset of abundance really should really be about us focusing on what it is that we can do, innovate, our ingenuity, the opportunities that we have within our own area, and within our own ability.
So Terence, how can one practice gratitude daily?
Well, I love what Peter said, Heather, about igniting the fire, and he uses it often in his talks. He asks the question, "What ignites your fire, and what makes my life worthwhile?" And I believe if I can reflect on that on a daily basis, I can be grateful for what I have, and practically, again, as Glenn said, it's about writing things down. So the keeping of a gratitude journal, I would strongly advise. I keep it, and after looking through my gratitude journal every morning, it's difficult for me not to be grateful for the sun that's shining and the birds that are singing, the simple things. And as Norman said, it's about getting that internal voice correct first. Once you have that compass set right, it's much easier. It's not at all, a walkover, because you still have to be deliberate about it. But once you have your internal compass right, then gratitude does come easier.
Glenn, you spoke earlier about the fear of scarcity, but can faith and fear reside together?
No. Let's put it this way. I think it's a case of that there's this constant struggle between the two. Absolutely, I do believe that. However, again, if we keep our focus on the things that we need to be focused on, that fear can actually start moving away and start disappearing, and the faith can actually step up into its rightful place. So again, for me, it's about changing the thought pattern. And the interesting thing is, it's not just in the head. It's interesting. There's a good scripture that says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." So it's quite interesting. It's about a heart attitude as well. You need to really believe in what you want to do, your passions and desires, and actually step into that. In other words, write down the ideas and concepts that you feel excited about. What gets you up in the morning? In fact, what gets you up on a Monday morning to really get going? I actually read something the other day about work. And for the first time in my life, and I'm in my late 50s, but for the first time, it actually dawned on me that work is actually meant to be something good. It's not meant to be something bad. Yet we all think of work as, oh, I've got to go and work now. But it should actually be something that God has created for us to actually do with our hands, with our bodies, with our mouths, with whatever that we're doing in terms of service, etc., or physically working with our hands. It should be something that we really enjoy. So we need to focus on the passions and desires that we have in our hearts, put pen to paper, as I said before, and set the goal as per Map for Life and step into that. And we'll start enjoying life much better. And then that fear will begin to step aside. and the faith will step up as we see things beginning to happen. Because the more we experience it, the more we'll see it take place.
Yeah, that makes sense. So faith and fear are complete opposites. And I'm thinking like the Map for Life, a fantastic tool for journaling your gratitudes, as Terence was saying, for writing things down, writing down your ideas. But Peter addressed something that he called the flow. And he said survival to stability to success to significance. Um, I love the progression. He used that word too as he spoke about it and gaining momentum. But survival to stability to success to significance. If each of you can give me an example of that progression, we'll start with Norman and then Terence and then Glenn, just so that people understand what the progression actually is.
Look, I mean, at survival, really, what it's saying is that, let me have the basics in place. Let me stabilize myself. It's like building a house and you want to have a foundation, because if the bread and butter issues are still sticking, the tendencies you will remain there, and that is what you would want to feed. And therefore it's important that that is taken care of. I'm able to have an activity that generates income for me to pay for my rent, to pay for my car, to pay for my food, at a basic level. Then, once I've survived, I kind of stabilize myself through a thought process where I want to say, okay, fine, let me evaluate my life. Let me actually evaluate my life in 8 areas, and find out in those 8 areas of family, of finance, of health, of my spirituality, what is it that exactly, where do I stand, and where do I lack? Where can I make improvements in my life? And just by that reflective process, of saying, look, I haven't been going to church regularly, or I haven't been giving back to the community regularly. I need to pay attention to that. That through that, I'm beginning to think of the areas that I need to stabilize my life on. And by then planning, the things that I need now to do to take my life forward, in terms of, I need my family to move from this level to the next level of growth in terms of the things we want to do as family. That plan is now beginning to kind of bring me to that success within those specific areas, and eventually it now no longer becomes about me. It's about what else now can I do to add value to life, having experienced the process of having grown all the way from that scarcity to the success, to having stabilized myself, and now I'm at a growth point. What can I now give out? And in that way, what legacy can I leave, and how significant? That's the life of significance that we look at now. That when I'm gone, what have I done? What have I given back? What value am I leaving in people's lives that is sustainable?
Thank you. Terence, would you like to?
No, I can't beat that. I really can't beat that. That was so excellently put. But let me just try and add to that. Norman, that was really excellent. I love that the way you described that progression. So when we talk of survival, we're talking of mainly the physical. So it's the basics, as Norman said. Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have something, food to eat, etc. So, and it's short term. It should be, and it normally is. It should be short term. It's the here and now, the present. Stability goes on, and I love the way Norman actually linked that to the map for life. It's around balance as well. I would include. So, is my life balanced? Am I living a life that is balanced and that's not skewed? For example, am I working too long hours? Am I treating my family right, etc.? So, wheel of life. That was an excellent analogy to bring in there. As far as success goes, I think for me, success is when I start seeing the results of my efforts. Okay, so in my job, for example, when I get a promotion, when I get recognized in a particular sphere, be it in the community, etc., that to me is, I'm now being successful. But a lot of that has got to do with my efforts and how I feel. Okay, and success is not short term; it's longer term, and then significance. I again picking up on what Norman said from a time perspective, significance for me goes into eternity. So it's what am I doing now that's going to impact through to eternity, right? And it's all around legacy. It's about the long term stuff, and also very much so not about me. It's about what difference can I and should I make, and throughout all these, again, underlying it, to bring back the topic of money. Money can be an enabler in all of these, particularly in the survival area. But it's not the end. It's the means to an end. Okay, thank you.
I like the way you moved from short term to long term. Glenn.
All right, interesting. I love what you gentlemen have been talking about. I want to take this from a slightly different perspective. I often talk about seed, and if you look at society today, most people, and I say even myself for that matter, I'll stand at a microwave and I'll be tapping my fingers and thinking, microwave, I wish you would hurry up now. It's this instant society that we have. Everything around us is instant throwaway society, and it's such a major challenge. And that's again that mindset that we've been almost conditioned to, that everything just must happen. Specifically, I found a lot of the younger folk as well, and even older folk, have this concept of, I want success and I want it now. It must happen. If I do something now, tomorrow I must get the money. And it doesn't. It can happen that way, but most of the time it doesn't. And again, it's about that progression that takes place. And I always think of seed. If I'm going to take seed and plant it, I can't expect that seed to pop up the very next day. It just doesn't work that way. So there's a process involved. And I often think of the story where people would actually come together as a community, and they would plant trees. And the goal behind planting trees would be for one day for those trees to grow up and grow big and strong, for them to cut them down and actually start building a church. And it's actually for the next generation. So we need to start thinking generationally. And that to me is that process that takes place from survival, where people would come together as a community. They're literally just surviving off the land, literally surviving off the land. And they would get together and work together as a community and actually then start surviving and moving further into success in where they're on, what they're doing, and taking it further into doing things for the generation, for the children, and for their children's children. Just as a different way of looking at it, moving from those particular positions. Okay.
Thank you for that, Glenn. That's really interesting. Now, I was going to ask, well, how do we monitor this? But Norman's already given us the answer, using the tool, the Map for Life book. If you haven't got your blueprint, we do explain how you can order one. That is one tool that you can use to monitor this. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, with survival being a 1, stability being a 4, success being a 7, and significance being a 10, you've got a red dot. Where would you put money? Now, Terence, I'm going to go to you first because you sort of gave an idea about that. So you're sitting with survival 1, significance 10, you've got stability and success 4 and 7, and you've got money. Where would you put the importance of money on a scale of 1 to 10 based on that progression?
Yeah, okay. Look, money is important. There's no doubt about it. Let's not fool ourselves, right? It's our approach to money. So to answer your question specifically, I would go for a 7. I would go for a 7. I would say, as an enabler, I'm going to give money a 7. I certainly won't give it a 1 because without money, there's not much you can do. Let's face it, and it would be very difficult to then begin to move from survival mode all the way through to significance. So I would give it a 7 because it is important to me.
Okay. I'm going to be very radical here. and I'm going to give it a 0. And let me explain what I mean. I really honestly believe that our focus should never be on the money. Anything that we're doing, if we're going into a position for work, we tend to do is look at the money, and then we go, okay, we'll look for this position, we'll go for that position. If we hear about a particular opportunity, we'll think about how much money can I make. I just believe it's the wrong focus. I 100% agree with you, Terence. Money is important. We need to live down here on earth with the money. We can't live otherwise. However, I think if we focus on the passions, the desires, and the things that are important, the real meat, as far as I'm concerned, most people would say that's the airy-fairy things. No, quite frankly, it's actually turned on its head, and I believe we've been conditioned to focus on the money all the time, and I really believe it's wrong. I've seen so many people make decisions because of money, and they fall flat completely, time and time again. And so for me, I think, and I don't mean to be facetious or anything to that effect, I really, honestly, money is important. We need it. But I honestly believe that if we focus more on the other things that are important, in other words, what is important to me? Let me explain it by talking about success. When I explain success to people, and what Peter spoke about, the progressive following after your dreams and goals, I 100% agree with that as well. However, I'd like to take it a step further, and I'd like to say this. When I talk to people about success, I say this. It's not about your success or my success or anything to that effect. It's about, for myself personally, I see success as this. And this is for me personally, not for anyone else. You can accept this if you want to, but it's your choice. Because if I say, well, success is having this fancy house and all kinds of things, and people look at it and they go, I can't do that, so then I'm not going to be successful. And they fall at the bus. Other people look at that and go, if you think that's success, that's you idiot, you're a fool, you're pathetic. So there's always that concept and that mindset and that perception all the time. However, if I say this, success for me is following after my purpose. If I fulfill and find my purpose and follow after that, and I apply that on a daily basis, I'm successful. And that could mean anything for anyone in terms of their purpose. And that for me is success. And that could be making a lot of money as part of the purpose. But it's not about the money. The money will follow automatically if you follow after that purpose. God is a God who calls himself Jehovah Jireh, which is provision. He is a God of absolute lavish. And so I really believe that's the situation. So sorry, I've really gone around in a bit of a circle over here, but that's where I am. Hope you understand.
I mean, I love what you're saying. If you follow your passion, the money will follow. But you've got that interim period where nothing's happening, and you got people to feed. So there is that. But
well, let me give an idea quickly. I was actually in a map cafe this morning and speaking to a lady who's actually got a what do you call it? It's not a B&B, but she's got people staying with her, almost like a commune. And I've chatted to her probably for the past, I would say about 6 months now. She's been coming to the Map Cafe, and I keep on saying to her, write down the vision, write down the goals and ideas and that type of thing. And every week she comes back, and I said, well, have you done this? And she goes, oh, no, she's been too busy. Today, what I did was I actually hauled out one of the portions in the map book, Map for Life methodology, which is the goal setting process, just a simple goal setting process. And I gave her that form, and I said to her, okay, I want you to write down an affirmation or a goal for your particular vision and idea. And I said, what is the vision idea actually about this place that you want to do? And she literally for the next 10 minutes went around in circles about different ideas, different concepts that you wanted to do. And I said, okay, fantastic. I said, stop there. And I took a piece of paper and I started writing down, and I made a little bit of a mind map for her. And I showed her in the center, what's the name of your business? And she gave me the name. I wrote down the name. I said, okay, there's 4 different areas that I'm picking up over here. It's the rooms where people will come in and actually stay. It's a garden and a place where you want to actually feed people. It's like a garden, tea garden type thing. And then there were a couple of other things as well. I wrote it down. And then I said, okay, how are you going to achieve that? At the moment, you're battling financially, but how are you actually going to achieve that? What you need to do is write down, state exactly what are the costs involved on a monthly basis, work at a budget, and say to yourself, how much are you going to actually charge these people? You've already complained now about the fact that you've got this prepaid meter put in, but you've seen that it's going to cost you 4,000 Rand a month just in electricity. So How are you adding that up in terms of the tenants that you're bringing in? Are you getting enough money from those tenants? Can you understand the practicality about it? And making notes on that and writing down and physically getting a budget at the end of the day and working that out. She'd never done that. And I'm thinking, it's actually a very simple process, but this is the problem. Most people don't even look at things like that. They just go, I want to start a business, so give me a whole bunch of money, take a loan from a bank, let's start it. Boom, let's go. There's no planning involved, nothing whatsoever. It's just step into it and go. And then they suddenly start realizing, oh, I need money. But if you step back and say, what is it that I really want to do? Put pen to paper. How am I going to achieve this? Set out the goal. Use the Map for Life process. And you actually get to a point where two things will take place. You'll get to a point, either you'll think to yourself, this is a bit of a challenge for me. Do I really want to do this? Or you'll get to a place where you'll go, something, this is getting exciting. I mean, I've got so many ideas now. It's crazy. I just want to carry on working with this. That's the passion and desire coming out. And if it's really something that is a passion and desire, it will happen. The interesting thing is, talking a little bit further with this lady, she said she needed 3,000 Rand. It was about 2,900 Rand for the prepaid. She didn't have it. So she started praying about it. Her brother put 3,000 Rand in her account the very next day. The provision will come automatically if you step into the goal, if you step into the process. It's just the way it works. And I can give example after example of this, how it's taken place. So I fully understand. And let me give you another quick example, then I'll finish. You can have a person standing in a mansion, sipping his wine or champagne with a Ferrari outside and sitting there with a dream of what he wants to do one day and flying in a plane in his own jet and that type of thing. You can have a person sitting in a tin shanty, no money whatsoever, with a dream of actually creating a mansion. Both of them have the option to be able to attain it. They will attain it. But it's about, again, the mindset and what they're prepared to do to actually attain it. You understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, no. Peter did talk to us about energy goes where focus goes. So yeah, I can see where you're going with that. We're actually running out of time. So Roman, I'm going to let you just close off with some final words.
Yeah, I think there's most probably three areas that I would want to touch on. The first being the question you asked, where money plays its role. Well, I think at survival stage, really, if at survival, and the reason for saying at survival stage is because it is there where the basic needs are required. So money does play a role, provided one then begins the journey to find their purpose. Because thereafter, everything then flows. Like Glenn just eloquently gave us an example with the lady. Everything will then flow. The other areas that I want to just close on and wrap up on is, I'm sure, our audience and people listening, they are like, listen to these bunch of guys who are poor. Show me money in the bank. And I say this because this has often been said when we espouse issues of peace, issues that money cannot buy. They're like, these guys have never really tasted money. But I just want to clarify to the fact that, yes, I can tell you now that we most probably need to redefine what wealth is, because the things that money can buy actually are things that can disappear. They can burn, they can get stolen, they can go away. Now, if that is what you call wealth, compare it with the things that money cannot buy, which is inner peace, which is love, which is a great home, a great family, loyalty, the gratitude that comes. Those things can never be stolen from you. They can never be taken away. They are sustainable. Actually, even if they were to take away your entire home, your car, and everything else, you can go and quickly rebuild yourself, because you have these things inside you, the inner peace and all of them, that you can then quickly rebuild yourself. And if you found your purpose, actually you can actually reactivate and even go to the higher and the next level. So really, today's talk around money and its role, we ought to kind of think it from that point of view, that if you really want things that are unsustainable, redefine what wealth really is to you. and begin where, like Glenn said today, you begin with a thorough planning process. And as you clarify yourself through faith, the things will come through and the money will follow through.
Yeah, I think that brings us right back to Peter's opening statement where he said purpose is about meaning and not about money. Funny enough, I would have put money on a 10 because I believe that you can be so much more significant with money, but we all entitled to our own opinion. Thank you guys for joining the talk. I hope we gave different perspectives on money, 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 and why. Join us next week, same time, for your map.